Welcome back, I'm Dave from Chase the Summit, and today we're going to be doing a quick hands-on overview of the new Apple Watch OS X update, which I just installed on my Apple Watch Ultra, and I've been testing this for a little while now. We'll go through the new user interface and experience, along with taking a deeper dive into what I find most exciting as a trail runner and hiker, and that's the new offline Topo map feature now available in Apple Maps. And if you're wondering how I got this early and how I've tested it out, well, WatchOS X is now available in public beta. Public beta means that anybody can go and toggle a setting in their phone now and download WatchOS X to their watch, which is pretty cool. It means you can test it out right now, but keep in mind, it's still in beta, and beta means it's not perfectly stable. It may hang up on phone calls, it may crash and restart, and that's the risk you're going to be taking if you install this on your watch right now. So just leave it up to me. Let me install it and let my watch crash instead of you. I also want to mention that I'll be glazing over a lot of the new features and design tweaks in WatchOS X to get to the good stuff that I care about, mainly because I don't care that much about Snoopy watch faces, but your mileage may vary. With all of that out of the way, let's dive into WatchOS X on my Apple Watch Ultra here. And as you can see, we're at the watch face, and from the watch face, nothing's changed. It looks basically the same, and Siri decided to kick on. But if you look at the Wayfinder watch face, it's basically the same as the older Wayfinder watch face. However, there's a big change in how you interact with the watch. So from the watch face, if I swipe down from the top of the screen, it drops into my notifications. However, if I swipe up from the bottom of the screen, it drops into this new sort of widget tile situation where you can see a bunch of information at a glance. Up top, we've got the time and date, and then below that are a bunch of widgets showing different information. So I've got my calendar widget here, I've got my activity widget here, then I've got a forecast widget here of my location, the news, and below that, I've got a quick action menu. Now this quick action menu allows me to do various things, from launch the music app, to start a workout, or even check my text messages, which is pretty cool. And if I need to do more, I can click this all apps button at the bottom here, which will dive into the app tray where I can see all of my apps. What's interesting about this widget view is that it actually replaces another feature of the Apple Watch, and it's that night vision mode that was available on the Apple Watch Ultra with the Wayfinder watch face. In the past, with the Wayfinder watch face, all you had to do was use the digital crown and roll it in one direction, and it would put the screen into a night vision mode, and that night vision mode turned everything red and black to be easier on your eyes when you're in the dark, so you don't have a super bright screen kind of blaring you in the eyes when you just need some subtle information. That feature is no longer available on WatchOS X. You cannot roll the digital crown to get into that night vision mode. However, you can still use night vision mode, and I'll show you how. What you got to do is go into your watch face here and then go to edit, and then from there you can actually change your night mode to 3 different options. You can use auto, which will automatically turn the display either dark or light depending on your situation. You can turn it entirely off, or you can leave it on full time. Still though, for those of you that love that night vision mode, that's going to be a change that you'll have to get used to in WatchOS X. Another change in WatchOS X is how the side button works. So if you click on the side button now, that actually brings up your control center options. This allows you to turn on and off your Wi-Fi or airplane mode, or check your battery life, and all the basic stuff you have in Control Center. However, this does not bring up your recent apps anymore as it did in the past. To get to recent apps, you now have to double click the digital crown, and by doing that, that'll bring up all of your recent apps so you can get to them or swipe them away if you don't want to have them open anymore. On the topic of the side button though, a double tap of the side button does bring up Apple Pay, so you can still use that pretty quickly, but all of these gestures are still very easy. It's just something you'll have to get used to as you update into WatchOS X, which I think might be a little frustrating for some people, but overall, you'll get used to it pretty quick. Moving right along, let's dive into the app tray or the app menu here. And here you can see I'm using the grid view right now. There's been a big change to the app list, and a lot of people will appreciate this, including myself. In the past, there were 2 different options to display all of your apps. You could have a basic list in alphabetical order, or you could have a grid. And a lot of people did not like the grid view because it was not all that useful. It was kind of like a big grid that you would have to scroll around from left to right, up and down, in order to find the icon of the app that you wanted to use. Apple has now changed that, so it's entirely vertical. And what I mean by that that is now when you dive into the app tray and scroll up and down, you will see all of your apps. There's no actual apps hidden off to the left or right of the grid as there were before. And again, if you don't want to use this sort of grid view, you can go down and click on the list view and it'll go back to that sort of default list of all of your apps, which arguably is more useful, but I do like the grid view as well now that it's all vertical. So functionally, what I've gone through so far is sort of the brunt of the changes in the Apple WatchOS 10 update. However, there are still a lot of little updates under the hood, including like little tweaks to various apps. So you can see here is my activity app, and it looks very similar to the previous activity app, but if I swipe down, you can see there's now full page animations for all of my information. There's just a more modern, more minimalistic look. It's a little bit simpler and easier to read. And throughout the entire user interface, there's just like cooler animations and different icons. As you can see here, I've got the weather app open. If I scroll down for the weather app, you can see that the animations are just like really smooth and pleasing looking. Here's another example of some design changes in the heart rate app. You can see there's sort of this like 3D looking heart that's got some cool lights animating around it. And once it picks up my heart rate, it glows and kind of pulses. And it's pretty interesting looking, but again, it's not super functional. It's just really pretty to look at. Like I said though, I don't want to waste a ton of time going through all of these nuanced features. Just know that Apple kind of went through all the apps and changed the experience just a little bit to feel a little bit more modern and more minimalistic and prettier to look at. But generally speaking, the functionality throughout all these apps is very similar, if not the same. Now that we've talked about WatchOS 10's user interface, let's dive into some of the apps that I care about as a trail runner and hiker. And like I said, those would be the Compass app and the Apple Maps app. And here you can see the Compass app, and Apple's made a few changes here. And just like before, you can do things like drop a waypoint pin or do a backtrack. And just like before, those are moderately useful. But the interesting thing about the Compass app is this new 3D view they added. So at the bottom here, if I tap on the elevation, it'll actually change the view of the compass to be this sort of 3D looking thing. And what this will allow me to do is actually see a projected elevation of all of the waypoints that I've added along a course. I don't have a good real life example of what this looks like, so I'll put the graphics up on the screen here. And the idea here is that if you set up camp at 4,000 feet of elevation and you're getting water at 400 feet of elevation, you'll be able to see just how far you are from your campsite and how much work it's going to take to get up there from where you are. However, the Compass app has a few other tricks up its sleeve. For example, it'll actually display where you can send an SOS message or make an SOS phone call from your phone or your watch, which is super cool. And I think this is probably the best use case of the Compass app and probably might save lives down the road. The reason why this SOS icon is so useful is because it will actually indicate where you can make an emergency phone call. And that doesn't mean you'll have service there. It just means you can make a phone call leveraging any cell phone antenna tower that's in the vicinity. And that may not be your provider's antenna. It can be anybody's, because in an emergency, your phone or your watch can call using anybody's antennas. Another really handy feature in the Compass app is that it will now display the last point where you had a cell phone signal. Okay, now that we've talked about the Compass app, I want to get to the good stuff and kind of the whole point of this video that I really wanted to talk about, and that is the topographic mapping that's now available on the Apple Watch Ultra. And as you can see here, it's a pretty darn good looking map with a ton of information. So this new WatchOS 10 update includes topographic maps, which show contour lines and elevation markers so you know exactly where you are and how high you are when you're out during a hike. These kinds of maps are incredibly useful for people who are really into the outdoors, and this is a welcome addition to the Apple Watch Ultra, because previously you'd need to buy something like a Garmin to get this on your watch, and now we've got it on Apple as well. Not only do these maps have contour lines and elevation data, but there's a ton more information embedded in the map itself. For example, you can see here that it also has the names of trails labeled right on the trail, so you know what trail's coming up. If you need to make a turn at a junction, you'll be able to see that ahead of time. And if I scroll down, there's also distance markers for the trail, so you know exactly how long that leg of the trail is before the next intersection. On top of that, there's also points of interest data. So up here you can see that there's a little icon. If I click on that, it indicates that there's actually actually a restroom near the top of this particular mountain. Another big update to WatchOS 10's map experience is the inclusion of trailhead and campground data. So as you can see here, there's a little icon here that looks like a trailhead sign, and it says Mount Diablo's Grand Loop. And by clicking on that icon, I get a ton of information about that particular trail. You can see I've got how far it is from my current location. I've got the phone number of calling the actual state park, the distance from where I am to where it is, along with images about the trail and some of the viewpoints that it offers. Scrolling down, there's a few more bits of information like what's good to know. So there's parking available and it's good for kids. And scrolling down even further, it gives me the address of the location there and the trails and cross sections that are nearby. So the Juniper Trail, Moses Rock Ridge, Mother's Trail, and all these are labeled whether or not they're easy or difficult and how long they are. This is just a really cool experience for somebody who's traveling. Maybe you want to go for a hike, you're not used to the area. You're able to dive into your watch, see trailheads, click on them, and get a ton of usable information, along with executing any navigation you need to do while you're out there just by clicking on the trail and saying start route. The new mapping experience on WatchOS 10 is a huge upgrade and something I'm really excited about. I don't know if you can tell. However, there are a few quirks that make it a little odd. The first thing I want to talk about is downloading offline maps, which is possible, and that's a really big upgrade. This means that you can download maps for offline use when you don't have a cell phone connection or a Wi-Fi connection. You can still see map data on your watch, but there's a catch. You need to have your phone with you. And I did some testing on this. I loaded up some Topo maps on my Apple Watch Ultra while paired to my iPhone 14 Pro. And then once it was loaded up, I turned off the iPhone 14 Pro and made sure it was not connected to the Apple Watch Ultra at all. And I turned off Wi-Fi, went into airplane mode, and basically turned off all connectivity. What was odd is that I could still see the contour lines on the topo map to some degree, but once I scrolled away from the area that I was in, that cached data just went away and I wasn't able to see any map data. Long story short, if you want to use this new map experience and the topographic maps and all of these cool new features, you will need your phone nearby in order for it all to work, which I feel like is a bit of an oversight. I know a lot of people in this sort of hiking, trail running, outdoor space, mountain bikers, everybody like that. And from what I can tell from most people, they want one device that they can rely on and they don't have to worry about it failing on them when they're out in the field. And unfortunately, when you have a phone and a watch, that's two items that you need to keep the batteries charged on and prevent from breaking and losing and everything like that. I could imagine a world where you drop your phone off a cliff when you're out on a hike and you had your map data on your phone, and now you no longer have updated map data on your watch. That would be a real bummer. I'm talking about some pretty niche use cases here, but I like the idea of all of the map data being stored in the watch, so I don't need to worry about another device failing on me. I just need to worry about the one device I have working. As an example, the Garmin Forerunner 965 I'm wearing on my wrist right now has an entire map downloaded to it. And not only that, it's a routable map. I can navigate back to the start of my activity. I can navigate to a waypoint. I can find my campsite, and I can do all of that without needing my phone nearby or a Wi-Fi connection, nothing. So while I do feel like this is a big upgrade, and I don't want to take anything away from this upgrade because it's really cool on the Apple Watch and WatchOS 10, I do feel like there are still some shortcomings that people might still prefer their Garmin's over the Apple Watch, but it's getting a lot closer now. Another interesting observation about this new map experience is that it's only available on your watch. So you can see the topo lines and contour lines and trail markers and all of that on your watch, but on Apple Maps on your phone, you don't see any of that information. You can still see the trailheads and icons and things, but you don't get contour lines and elevation data, which I thought was kind of odd. I wish that was a layer in Apple Maps on my phone that I could turn on, because again, if my watch failed me, I still want another way to see that data, and I probably would have my phone with me. And when it comes to mapping and navigation, there's still a couple of other things missing. For example, there's no on-demand routing. So if you wanted to get from point A to point B, for example, you wanted to navigate using the trails and the data in the map from where you are to your campsite, you can't really do that on the Apple Watch Ultra. You'd have to use the Compass app, and that doesn't have a map to it. It's more of a straight line navigation. So that doesn't work. And there's also no GPX or pre-created route support. So you can't download a route from Strava and upload it to your Apple Watch and follow that on your map. You can only use the routes that are built in using that trailhead feature. And finally, one of the things I was really hoping for when they announced this back at WWDC was the ability to have a map as a data page during one of your workouts. So if I wanted to go on a hike and I started the hike using my workout app and I scroll through my data pages, it would be really cool to have a map as one of these pages. And unfortunately, you can't do that at the time of filming this video. It's still in the Apple Maps app. So to get from your workout app, if you're like out doing a hike and you've got your distance and mileage and elevation data and everything in the workout app, but you want to look at your map, you'd have to double tap on the digital crown and then swipe back, and I accidentally hit the wrong app. I'd have to go back and find where my map is, and there's my map. Now I can zoom in and look at my map, which is great. But now if I want my compass app, because I want to do some navigation, I have to go back and then to my compass app. And I feel like there's just a lot of fiddling here to go from one app to another when they could have condensed this all into one app. Like put this all in the workout app as different data pages, and you'd have a compass data page and a map data page, and that would be really cool. And unfortunately, that's not the case here. And I get that not everybody would want that, but the ability to turn that on would be really nice. Now, after all of that, it is important to remember that this is still a beta release. And because of that, it may look different. They may change things. They may add maps to the workout. Please do that. That would be great. I won't hold my breath, but you know what I mean. This is a beta. It could change, so just keep that in mind. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. I think, like I said, this is just a quick video to sort of go through the changes that I've noticed so far while playing with WatchOS 10 and what I think about it so far. And again, I feel like I might be in the minority, but one of the most exciting features on this new WatchOS 10 release is that mapping experience. And I really like it. It's a huge upgrade for Apple. I'm really happy they did it, and they are certainly heading in the right direction if they could only change a few things. But now I want to hear from you. What do you think about WatchOS 10? Is it a worthy upgrade? Are you going to ditch your Garmin for an Apple Watch Ultra because of this update? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you. And now we're here. We are at the end of this video, and if you're still watching, you probably enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, I would really appreciate it if you gave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. And while you're down there, check out the links in the description that do help support this channel if you're interested on picking up an Apple Watch Ultra or even the Garmin I'm wearing. That'll all be linked down below. And I think I'm done now. I think I covered everything I want to. There's a lot I didn't cover, but you get the idea. Yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.